put a question in the chat box, please, but could we not have anything other than questions, speak, or comment in the chat box? No conversations, please. Good morning, everybody. So first, could we approve the minutes of the last meeting as a correct record of the executive meeting held on the 3rd of December 2020? Executive members, are you all in agreement?
Can I speak, please?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Can I speak? Councillor Pennington.
Councillor Pennington, yes, you may.
I'm sorry?
Yes, you may speak.
Thank you. With regards to the agenda item 1, minutes of the exec meeting, I was unable to attend because, unfortunately, it was my wife's funeral day. However, I have great concern over one of the items on there, which I must bring to the attention of the council. On page 4, under public question time, question number 2 from Derek Hoare, in which he used his question to denigrate me and state in public that I was, as the ward councillor, was against the project for improvements to the recreation in Torfield in Malden. That contention is totally invalid and should be withdrawn, in my opinion, strong opinion, and I consider Mr. Hoare should at the very least apologise for saying it. When the parish council purchased Torfield from the National Trust, let me give you the background. National Trust back in 1977, and Kathleen, my wife, typed all the correspondence long before Mr. Hoare lived in Malden, long before. I, as chairman of the parish council and ward member on Southam's district council, led the process for the Torfield to become Malden's great recreational field, and the parish council purchased all the play equipment and still support it. Therefore, I hope councillors will recognise my great concern, and at the very least, I require an apology for him making that statement and using public question time. I think he should withdraw that statement immediately. At least.
Councillor Pennington, we've checked the minutes for the meeting, I think on the 10th of October, but it was the October meeting of Malden Parish Council, where it states that you were against the project. Now, I think that's probably where this has come from, but that's the evidence I've got in front of me, I'm afraid.
Well, it is incorrect, totally, and it denigrates me, I believe, and I think this is totally wrong for this to be placed on the agenda.
Councillor Pennington, I think you need to take it up with the parish council because they've got approved minutes that show that, I'm afraid. So there's not much we can do about it, given the evidence we've got in front of us.
Well, so does that mean that anybody can use public question time to start making points against a member?
Well, it's not so much a point, but if it's minuted, I think it's just relating the minutes, isn't it? Could you take this up outside the meeting and can we move on, please?
I wish this to go before the monitoring officer for investigation, because I resent, and so do a lot of other people in Malden. I've never said anything at all. That is.
Councillor Pennington, please, you're welcome to take this up with the monitoring officer, but I was sent the evidence yesterday, and in the circumstances, I think there's not a lot I can do about it at the present moment, because it is in the minutes from Malden.
I think so. So what you're really saying there, which I've never met in my whole career as a councillor on any of the levels, county or district and parish, that somebody can make a false statement about a member. And this is totally false. I'm all for recreation on the field. I always have been. I've led it. What does this man come along and say, make this statement for? Where's his evidence, please?
Well, the evidence is the minutes of the Malden Parish Council. And I've got them in front of me, and I'm just trying to find the actual line that says that, but I did read it yesterday. Hang on, it does say a vote was taken and it was therefore resolved to proceed with the option to instruct the clerk to proceed with an application to the Executive Committee at Southants District Council for £45,000 of the Section 106 monies, after which the ward councillor, Councillor Pennington, stated he would not support the parish council's application for £30,000, to which his...
Not at that stage, because public consultation had not been taken. And public consultation has been taken now, and it is supported.
Oh, well, I think this must have been referring then to what is in the minutes for October. But I'm afraid it is in the minutes there. So, as I say, you can take this up with the monitoring officer, but I think we ought to move on to the business of the meeting now. Right. Apart from Councillor Pennington's objection, are there any other objections to the minutes for the 17th of December?
No objection.
No objection.
No. Members of the executive, everybody else has been asked to turn their cameras off, but it would be helpful if you could turn your cameras on, please, so that I can see you, if that's all right.
Leader, I'm happy it's a true record.
So, with that one exception, then we'll.
No, Leader, I don't accept it as an exception. I'm sorry. I've read the minutes, and that it is a true record of what took place at the meeting.
What, at the Malden Parish Council meeting?
No, at our executive meeting.
Well, it is a true record of what took place at our meeting.
Sorry, Leader, the affairs of Malden Parish Council are not for this executive.
No, they're not. But
we accept them in total as a true record of the last.
Well, it certainly is a true record of the last meeting, because that was said at the last meeting. So I agree with you on that point, Councillor Baldry. Do I have everybody else's agreement on that?
Yes.
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 Well, thank you very much then. Well, we'll move on to the next item. The next item is urgent business. Now, there is an urgent paper, which I shall be taking first, but we'll move on until we get to the actual items on the agenda. We'll move through the division of the agenda. I don't think we're going to have to divide the agenda. Item 4, declarations of interest. Members, do you have any, members of the executive, do you have any interest to declare?
No.
No interests.
Thank you. Now, public question time. We do have public questions. The first one is from Mrs. Barbara Phillips. Mrs. Phillips, are you with us this morning?
Chair, I can advise that we invited all 5 members of the public who submitted questions, and not one of them has confirmed they wish to attend this meeting. Thank you.
Right. In that case, Darryl, do you want me to read the questions out, or shall we just take them as read and they'll appear in the minutes? What do you want to do?
They'll be both in the minutes, Chair, and they're on the presentation screens at the moment as well. So if you're happy to read the responses,
yes,
I'll change the slides as we go.
Okay. Well, there is one response for questions 1 to 3. As set out in detail in the report to Council later today, the climate change and biodiversity strategy sets out background and context, and the action plan sets out how the Council will initially approach achieving its declared aims. The report also clearly states that the action plan will be continually evolving. In order to work towards the aims, it's recognised that consideration will need to be given to the impacts on climate change and biodiversity of both existing policies and proposed actions. This assessment will be undertaken through implementation of the action plan. In a similar way, and specifically through the development of the Devon Carbon Plan and its associated action plan, the Council and its partners will work closely with the agricultural sector to secure carbon reductions in this key area. The strategy and covering report recognises the need for the Council to work with partners locally, regionally and nationally to meet the complex challenges that we all face, but also recognises where the Council can have the most influence and where other partners are better placed to take the lead. In terms of the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, the Council supports the high-level principles, but will need to properly assess the contents and implications of the bill further before making an informed decision in this regard. Thank you. So that's the answers for questions 1 to 3. Could we have question 4 up then, please, Darryl? Thank you. So this is, oh, it calls itself D. It's called 4 on my copy. So the response to this question: the Council fully recognises the benefits and importance of retrofitting and improving the energy efficiency of existing housing stock, and has been active in this area for a number of years now, improving thousands of properties during this time. It's also recognised that the nature of the housing stock in the area and the national demand for qualified installers increases the size of the challenge that we face as a community. The Council is actively working with community energy groups and other partners to develop local supply chains, and will be working with partners through ongoing economic recovery plans to identify skills shortages and opportunities in this area. Thank you. And now we've got the final question, which is question 5, or E. The response to this one is, we are very interested in modular technology, recognising the quality of build and speed of construction benefits. We have visited multiple manufacturers' factories and spoken with others, including Ideal Modular, Premier Modular, Hex Home and Caledonian. However, at the current time, we have no contracts or undertakings with any manufacturers. Should we wish to enter into any contracts in the future, we would do so in accordance with procurement regulations and policies. So thank you very much to all our questioners. And I presume we won't have any supplementaries, but if they come in, they will be answered in writing. Thank you. So we will now move to the urgent business, which is the paper that was sent out yesterday for the new recycling service. Councillor Baldry, you're going to introduce this, aren't you?
Yes, thank you, Leader. In following our normal procedure at this stage, I just want to introduce the paper, after which we'll take questions, and then later on I shall move the recommendations and open the debate. Members are aware that there have been problems in many ways with introducing the Devon Aligned service, which was due to come in on the 8th of March. Before that, we had to delay implementation, which was originally due in September, because of COVID. Supplies were difficult to come by. The vehicles got tied up in a factory in Ireland and were not released. And essential building supplies for the new depot at Ivybridge meant that instead of the Devon Aligned service, which has widespread public support, coming in March, in September, it is now going to come in March. On top of that, as members will be aware, when we introduce the round changes, which are an essential part of the new service, we did not go smoothly. There were problems with FCC and the implementation of the service. That is why we are recommending in this paper, Leader, that instead of bringing in the whole Devon Line service with one big bang in March, we will introduce it stage by stage, round by round, starting with an easy round coming in on the 8th of March. And if that is successful, we will then pursue and go further forward to bring it in across the district as a whole over several weeks. That is the purpose of the paper, and I am happy to take questions on it, unless Mr. Molyneux wishes to come in and say anything.
Mr. Molyneux, do you want to come in?
Only to say that, thank you, Leader. Just to say that, carrying on from what Councillor Baldry said, that the original proposal of the Big Bang would have meant delivering recycling containers starting from the beginning of the middle of January, and then go to the new service on the 8th of March. And this proposal outlines basically delivering boxes on a sort of round by round basis. So the boxes will be delivered to residents the week before they start their new collection, and we will do that over the days of the week over the sort of coming period of about 5 or 6 weeks. And I think the proposal from FCC suggests a break around Easter. So it means we can do the first round and assess the success of that, have a break between Easter, and then continue delivering the boxes and carry on the programme through April. So I'll wait until there are further questions, if that's okay, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Before questions, can I just say that Appendix A was not written by us. I'm happy for other people to take questions on that, but I don't feel able to. It is an FCC paper.
Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Baldry. Now, I'm going to take questions from the executive first, if there are any. But other members, when it comes to you asking questions, I want to make it clear that this paper is about the delay and phased rollout of the new recycling service, and not about anything that's been happening around the place recently. Your opportunity to question FCC on that will be in January, when they're attending the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, to which any DM members will be welcome to turn up, and I'm sure that Councillor Burke will be happy to allow you to ask questions. So I want to make that quite clear before we start. Members of the executive, do you have any questions for Councillor Baldry?
None from me, Leader.
Councillor Hopwood.
Councillor Holt, sorry, I need to get onto full. I'm in the wrong box. Oh, Councillor Hopwood has put her hand up. Yes, because she's a member of the executive. Councillor Hopwood, yes. You want to come in?
Thank you, Leader. Just a couple of points to. It is a difficult one to remember that this is just about the phased rollout and not about problems that have been incurred, because we all know there have been some problems. But just to quickly put those problems into context, we had a very good meeting with FCC last week, and we must all remember that 99.1% of deliveries of collections, and I think we collect about 65,000 bins a week, are done successfully. And I know that 99.1% I'm sure is actually going up now. I think the problems have gone down to literally a couple handfuls of properties now. So I'm glad that the meeting we had with FCC has had a positive impact. In point 2, with regards to the £84,000 costings, in paragraph 7 we have to go from bit to bit, don't we? And I've lost the paragraph. 7 point something. It says that we are actually negotiating with FCC to bring that to hopefully bring that down. And I wondered how the negotiations were going.
I think I can bring in Andy Bates on that, unless Councillor Baldry, if you want to say something.
No, I was on the edge of my seat waiting for the question. We got the question in the end.
Sorry, I've got the question. Right, I'll bring in Andy Bates, because I think he can say something on that.
So thank you, Leader. So Mr. Molyneux and I met with Steve Longdon last night to carry forward the discussion that the executive had with him and his colleagues previous week. We pressed him very hard on the issues around cost, and indeed the period during which the contract is normally not subject to penalties. I might well bring Mrs. Buckle in a minute with regard to the finances, because there are possible mitigations that we can adopt in relation to costs. We'll continue to work with FCC around that, but I believe that there are ways in which we can mitigate the costs in any case. Following the conversation with Mr. Longdon last night, we've had a communication from FCC this morning to offer to remove the normal three-month period in which penalties on the contract apply, and instead to reduce that to 6 weeks to be applied on a rolling basis over the period of the rollout. I think that's an important recognition on their part that they have not done as good a job as they would have wished with the round changes. I think it's also a demonstration of their belief that the plans and learning they've taken from that will result in the successful phased introduction of the new service. So we put that to you as the executive as their proposition. As officers, we think that that is a reasonable recommendation on the part of FCC. We think it does mean that they have recognised the situation that they've created, and we think that that is something that the executive may well want to consider and accept. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Chief Executive. Now, do I have any more questions from the executive on this paper?
No.
Questions.
If not, I will move on to questions from the floor. But remember, because I only want them on the paper, please. I think the first question I've got in the chat box is from Councillor Birch.
I think it was Councillor Spencer who's before me.
No, he wants to comment. Not he's.
Oh, right. Sorry, my question. Right. Oh, thank you. It's a very simple question. 4.6 of the paper, where it says that FCC have been asked to attend the January the 14th meeting. They've been asked. Am I right in thinking they've accepted that invitation, or is that? I just want to know whether or not they've accepted the invitation to attend.
Can Darrell answer that, please?
I can answer that, Leader and Councillor Baldry. Yes, they have confirmed they will be attending, Councillor Birch.
Thank you very much indeed. That's fine. Thank you.
I have to say that was my understanding, Councillor Birch. But thank you for answering the question. And we've got a question from Councillor Pannell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think the Chief Executive has laid out some of the answer to what I was going to ask, but I'll just ask, will the executive think long and hard before we agree to pay out more money to FCC to protect them from a repetition of the mistakes that they made last time round, as it were? This paper is aimed at avoiding, quite understandably, the problems that arose with the change of rounds. I don't see why we should be paying out very much money to help protect them from a repeat. I think that should be their job.
Councillor Pannell, I don't know whether Councillor Baldry, you will agree to this, but shall we have Mrs. Buckle in to talk about the financial side of things? Would that be a good idea to explain that to members? I think it probably would be.
Yeah,
fine with me, thank you.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
happy for Mrs. Buckle to do it. Yes.
Yes. Are you there, Mrs. Buckle?
I am, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Yes, on a monthly basis, the Council does complete government Delta returns. And as part of those returns, we have to state how much additional expenditure the Council has incurred due to COVID-related reasons. And also, as part of those returns, we also do set out our income losses. Now, if this were to be agreed by members, on the next Delta return, we could include the additional 84,000 in the relevant months. And although there is no direct comparison between the expenditure that we declare on the Delta returns and the government grant which we receive through the tranche funding from COVID, I am sure there is some sort of reconciliation done within government to look to see that the amount of government COVID funding which we have received does roughly equate to the expenditure that has been incurred. Now, to date, we have received 4 COVID tranches, totaling 1.12 million, We do know from the spending review that there is due to be a 5th tranche of COVID funding. That is 1.55 billion nationally. My reckoning is we will receive at least 100,000 of that, if not more. That 5th tranche of government funding will not be received until the first quarter of 21-22, but we do know that money has been set aside from the government for a 5th tranche allocation. So we could include the 84,000 in our Delta monitoring returns as expenditure incurred due to COVID-related reasons. Thank you.
Leader, I don't think that answers Councillor Panel's question. Councillor
No,
Panel's
it doesn't. But no,
relates to what we pay to FCC.
Yeah, I think that Mr. Molyneux would like to come in and say something on that.
Thank you, Leader. So just so members are clear, and I think this is in response to Councillor Panel's question, that 84,000 is not money that's going to FCC. That's budgeted savings that we will make once we go to the new service, and because the service is a delayed rollout, we won't make those savings. So in actual fact, the new service that we take with FCC will cost us more money, and this is savings we've budgeted in. And there's all sorts of complicated formula around the fact that we share the recycling pricing. So if the council currently is exposed to the cost of the recyclate market, and when we go into the new service, then that cost is shared with FCC. So actually at the moment, that represents a saving that we won't be making for a period of time, rather than extra money that's going to FCC. So I hope that answers Councillor Panel's question.
Councillor Panel, is that all right? Do you want to come back?
Yeah, I think it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it does to some extent. I still don't think that we should feel that we should be out of pocket because FCC wants to mitigate against a repeat of the problems it had last time round. So yeah, if we can get it reimbursed through government, as long as we're not going to be out of pocket in the end, I think that's reasonable. But I do think that we need to be very careful about losing these savings to help FCC.
Councillor Palmer, I don't think it's so much a question of helping FCC. I think it's a question of mitigating and giving the best service we can to our residents. And this seems the most sensible way of doing it at the moment. Councillor McKay, you've got a question.
Sorry, yes. It largely follows on from what Councillor Panel was saying. I still don't really understand why, given the fact that these costs are now a burden on the council, have arisen as a direct result of the incompetence of FCC, why the council needs to be bearing that cost. I mean, I don't know the details of the contract, but I would have thought there was performance related clauses in there, and clearly they haven't performed. I'd like to really understand why it is that we are ending up having to bear this burden.
Can I answer that, Leader?
Yes, of course you can, Councillor Baldry. Please do.
You've gone. Are you there? Yes, you are. The costs are as a direct result of the fact we were not able to introduce the new service in September as planned. Introducing that service would have resulted in savings to this council. The reason we didn't introduce it in September is not because directly of FCC, but it is because we were not ready to go with the new service because we had not got all the equipment in place and nor built Ivy Bridge Depot.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry, can I just comment on that? The recommendation, Leader, says the additional costs will be incurred as a result of adopting a phased approach. It doesn't say it's because of COVID and the delay in general.
Mrs. Buckle, could you come back on that one, please?
Yes, so it is as Mr. Murphy and the executive member set out. The delay is We do know that it's a 42,000 delay cost of a delay for every month that we can't go live with the Devon Aligned service. And we haven't been able to do that, mainly for COVID related reasons, due to the vehicles, due to the depot. And that's why what we are suggesting is that that 84,000 could be included within the government return, which clearly sets out COVID related costs. And we do know that the tranches that we get of government grant are to meet extra costs because of COVID related reasons. So the 84,000 is just 2 months of the 42,000 delays. Does that help?
Councillor Pannell, does that help you? Every month we delay, the cost is £42,000, so 2 months more will be £84,000. But if we can pick that up from the government, this is, I have to say, this is COVID related, because had we not had the extra problem of all the drivers being off for the time they were off, I think that FCC would have been in a much better position to start rolling out the service when they should have done. Councillor Baldry, would you like to comment on that?
Well, yeah, except to agree, but I will say as an aside, had we introduced it in, we don't tell the government this, but had we introduced it in September as originally scheduled, and had we had all the problems with the round changes not working, it would have been a bigger muddle than it is now.
Thank you both for your words. That's helpful.
We are where we are. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. A number of the questions have been addressed by other councillors, but the one I have is that the question is, was a phased approach originally considered when this whole project was coming forward? And if it was, why was it dismissed? But also, you know, is it recognised that this change that is being put forward, I can understand why, given the problems we've had, it may, you know, save additional problems, will give a high level of confusion amongst residents, and that in itself may give problems when it rolls out anyway.
Right. Yes. Experience is a great teacher. The phased approach, I now think, is the right way to do it. It is based on the experience where our contractor did not deliver what we hoped him to deliver, and what he had promised to deliver when he had said the round changes were a piece of cake, we're used to it, we've done it for years, and no problem whatsoever, we've done it all over the country. In the event, it was a problem, and that is why I am very keen now that we do the phased approach, test a relatively easy round to start with, if any round is easy, and then move on from there. If sorry, the answer to Councillor Long is I don't think a phased approach was considered in the first place, but one of the officers may wish to comment. But now it has been considered, it seems a jolly good idea.
Councillor Long, can I just further add?
Sorry,
just on. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Councillor.
No, I was just going to add, on the confusing of the residents, I have confidence that our comms team will make sure that they get the message correctly. We will be starting the service, if this is agreed, in March, and it will be phased out, and residents will be notified about the phasing. Mr. Molyneux signalled, I think.
Yeah, he did.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Only to reiterate what you've just said is the comms will be targeted at the phasing, so residents shouldn't be confused by that. They will get specific comms that telling them what day they're changing, what day their boxes are arriving, when the new service starts. And I can confirm that phased approach wasn't, as Councillor Baldry said, wasn't considered for the original round review. Thank you.
Councillor Long, I'm sure you've got a particular worry about second homes. I've asked for letters to be sent to the council tax billing address as well as the property address this time, in the hopes that may reach more people, more of the people we want to reach.
Thank
right,
you, Chairman.
I hope that's the end of the
Was part of the
question.
reason for my concern, but I do appreciate your and Councillor Baldry's and Steve Molyneux's comments on my question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Leader, before we move on, Councillor Hawkins has put his hand up to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, he's got his hand up, but I'm now on the chat box because I thought all the hands had gone down. Sorry. Okay, Councillor Hawkins.
You were ignoring me. You're doing a wall well on me. So I had to put on both sides. Following last week's meeting we had with FCC, which I thought was very, very positive, it made me have far more confidence than I had originally, and of the concerns which I had got. So I think what we're proposing now, the rollout from March, I think it's the 8th onwards, is certainly the best way forward. And I think that I think what we're proposing to do is almost ward by ward or town by town. I think that is a much better, sensible way to go forward. I'm pleased that
we're meant to be on questions at the moment, not comments.
Oh, well, I did say comment in the box.
Yeah, I know, but then I was told you wanted to come in, but I hadn't seen the box. I'm sorry, I thought you were asking a question.
I was going to do a Nicky, but I'll carry on. I'll finish. Sorry.
Do you want to finish what you're saying? Now you're saying it, but
no. I'll come back in a few minutes.
Right. Okay. If we come to the end of the questions, Councillor Baldry, would you like to propose the recommendations, please?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think what the Chief Executive said about discussions with FCC changes the actual recommendations, and therefore I'd like to move the recommendations 1, 2 and 3, and we have already got into the reasons and the background for it, so I have nothing further to say on that. I'm happy for you, Leader, to open the debate.
Thank you. I'll second the recommendations. Right. Now, I think we first of all had Councillor Spencer who wanted to comment. Oh, sorry. No, I'm going to have the executive comments first. So, executive members, if you want to comment, would you like to put your hand up now? And I'll take you first. If there are right, Councillor Bastow.
I'll be very brief, Leader. I think it's very disappointing that we have to delay matters, but I accept everything that Councillor Baldry has said, and I'm supportive of this way forward to try and make a smooth transition into the new collection process.
Thank you. And Councillor Hawkins, comment now, you may.
Just to carry on, really, I'm pleased, obviously, that FCC have agreed to come to overview and scrutiny in January. I think that will be an important meeting. And just to say, yes, this is the best way forward. And I thank all the officers for all the hard work and effort they've been doing over the last couple of months for us, because they've been working exceptionally hard and under difficult circumstances, particularly with a number of our operatives being off with COVID. So I'd just like to thank them, and I think this is the best way forward. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Right, now that looks like no more questions from the executive, so I'll go over to the chat box. I know that now I just want to remind members once again that we are talking about this paper and not about anything that has happened in the past or this week or whatever with bins not being picked up. Councillor Spencer, you've got a comment to make.
Yes, I have. I'm aware that the executive had a meeting with FCC a short while ago, and I must admit I do feel at a little bit of a disadvantage by not knowing as much as perhaps I would like to know about the content of that meeting. And I wondered whether any recording was made and whether that could be made available to us. I also think this whole thing is a little bit, well, it's a real shame. I've been told by one South Hams district, ex-South Hams district councillor, that our waste collection services were regularly praised by many residents. And that was certainly my experience as a resident before becoming a councillor. And it does seem to me that this has now been consigned to history, at least in the short term, judging by what's going on in my ward. I feel that we have a lot of catching up to do in terms of public perception, and I wonder whether that's something we need to address. I don't think this is all about FCC. However, having said that, I see from the report that's produced at 2.2, we talked about a saving of £286,000 in the first 18 months. I would assume that now isn't the case in view of the amount of officer time, council time that's been spent on trying to deal with all of these queries. And I know I'm not supposed to be talking about that, but nonetheless, that £286,000 to my mind has been whittled down considerably over the last few weeks and months. At 6.1 on page 6, the report talks about the suspension of the Report It facility on the website. One resident described this to me as the council sticking its fingers in its ears on the basis that if they couldn't hear anything about complaints, they weren't happening. And I don't think that action was taken with any by residents with any great sympathy at all. And as far as I'm aware, there was no communication about its reintroduction. And it seems to me that we need some work done on our communications with our public and regain their confidence. I'd also make a comment about the fact that both reports talk about COVID-19 and its impacts, and I do understand that. But I've seen many FCC trucks many times since March 2020, and not once have I seen FCC collectors wearing face masks in their cabs. That's all I really wanted to say. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Councillor Spencer. Councillor Baldry, do you want to comment?
I'll comment on some of it, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about things which we're going to be talking about in overview and scrutiny.
I would agree. Yes.
In January. On the original point that Councillor Spencer made about the meeting with FCC, we did not tell FCC at the time that we were going to be recording the meeting and making it public, and therefore I don't think we can do that retrospectively. We have a record of the meeting, but an actual recording I don't think we can share, having not told FCC we were going to do that. Can I just also say that I am aware there are many problems across the district. One of the places which has been hardest to clear up is Cornwall, which is Councillor Spencer's ward. I'm going to thank Councillor Spencer for his cooperation this week with me, because I contacted him. Their collection day is Monday, to find out if there had been continuing failures in Cornwall. And I think I'm right to say there were only 2 failures in Cornwall, which I passed on to the officers to follow up. But just thanking Councillor Spencer for his help in trying to get this right. And on the general point, I agree with him. As far as the public concerned, it is not FCC who collect their bins, it's Southampton District Council. And the reputation of this council and the reputation of our members who have been having to pick up the brunt of the problems has not been good. And we have lost a lot of reputation about the quality of our service. And that is why I'm determined that when we do the Devon Line service collections in March, they come back in as a good news story and they work. But the rest of the stuff, I think we can postpone to the overview and scrutiny meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. I did ask that the chat box should only be used for asking comments. So, Councillor O'Callaghan, can you refrain from putting emojis up, please? Councillor Brazil, I'm really pleased to see your news, but could you keep the chat box for just requesting to speak, please?
On top of that, Leader, I can beat that. They collected from us at 8:45 this morning.
Very good. Right. Thank you. Now, do we have any more debate? Because if not, I am going to move to the decision. I don't see anybody else wants to speak. Members of the executive, one final chance if you want to say anything in the debate. I have to say I thought long and hard about all this since the meeting we had with FCC, but I think it is the right way forward, and I think that a phased rollout does give them the opportunity to show that they can get it right, and it also gives them enough breathing space if they get something wrong, to be able to put it right before the next phase comes in. And I think it will be, am I right in thinking, Councillor Baldry, it's over a 5-week period? There are actually 5 different tranches.
It is over a 5-week period. We're still discussing what's happening.
Over Easter.
Yeah, Holy Week and Easter week, yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Baldry.
Sorry, and the final thing, sorry, Lee, I was just going to say,
that's all right. No, please,
Councillor Birch is quite right about paragraph 4.6, and I hope the minutes will show that not only have FCC been asked to attend, but they have accepted.
Thank you. Right, members of the executive, are you happy to approve the recommendations at the top of this paper? Yes? Right. Well, I take that as agreement. I can't see Councillor Hopwood at the moment. Councillor Hopwood, are you there? You've got your camera on.
I am here with my hand up.
Good. Fine, thank you. It's just that you're not appearing on my list. Oh, you are now. Thank you.
I can see myself. I have got my camera
no,
on.
you can see yourself, but for some reason you weren't on my screen, but that's fine. Thank you very much, members of the executive. Right, that's the emergency paper, so we will pass on to item number 6, which is the revenue budget monitoring. Councillor Bastone.
Thank you, Chairman. This is month 7 revenue budget monitoring report of 2020-21, and the report identifies a projected underspend of £69,000 for the year, which is 0.7% of the overall budget set for 2021 of £9.41 million. This position is after taking into account the £1.12 million pound government grant which the council has received for COVID-19 and the estimated £1.1 million government funding that the council is anticipating towards income losses on sales, fees and charges. This position is also after factoring in the one-off funding sources of £1.313 million which were approved by council on the 24th of September for the amended budget for 2020-21. The loss of income streams already experienced by the council from April to October total £1.475 million, as shown in section 6 of the report. Recommendation 3 of the report is to recommend to transfer £100,000 into a COVID earmark reserve to protect against future COVID losses in 2021-22. The £100,000 is the 4th tranche of government COVID funding received. This will provide some funding in 21-22 should the council still be experiencing losses in income from COVID. The £69,000 underspend predicted in this report is the position after factoring in the transfer of the £100,000 into the COVID earmark reserve. This budget monitoring report also excludes the impact of reductions in income from business rates and council tax, as these do not affect the council's bottom line in this current year 2021, apart from the pooling gain, due to the way the accounting for these income streams go through the collection fund. On the 25th of November this year, the Chancellor announced a tax income guarantee scheme for 2021 as part of the spending review of the current year. The new reimbursement scheme will be launched to compensate councils for 75% of irrecoverable losses of council tax and business rate revenues in 2021 that would otherwise need to be funded through local authority budgets in the 2021-22 and later years. I'd like to take members back to the revenue position that we were predicting as a council at the end of May this year, when the council was projecting net expenditure to be over budget by £3.6 million due to the losses forecast from COVID. The successful lobbying of South West councils, the district councils network, the LGA and councils such as South Hams through our MPs and national networks has meant that around 2/3 of this has been funded by the government through a combination of direct COVID grant funding, the 4 tranches received of £1.12 million, and the income compensation scheme for sales fees and charges of £1.1 million. This demonstrates the effectiveness of lobbying on a national level and the part that the council has played in that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bastone.
I thought you'd fallen asleep for a minute.
No, I haven't. I was just looking at a message coming in. They're coming in from all quarters. Members of the executive, do you have any questions for Councillor Bastone?
No, Leader.
No. Okay. So, are there any questions from the floor then on this paper? Well, in that case, there don't seem to be. Councillor Bastone, would you like to propose the recommendations on the paper?
Yes, I move the recommendations 1, 2 and 3 regarding the month 7 revenue budgeting monitoring 2021 to the end of October 2020.
Thank you, and I'm happy to second that. Right, we'll move on to the debate. Now, members of the executive, is there anything you want to discuss on this paper?
No, thank you.
No? I would like to say, ahead of the Chancellor's statement coming through today, that I do think that Mrs. Buckle has done an absolute, and her team, indeed the team, and Pauline and the team, have done an absolutely brilliant job throughout COVID, keeping us on the straight and narrow. And not only did they propose a very good budget in September, but they're showing their iron grip on the finances through this paper now, and how well they have got everything under control in the circumstances, because I can assure you, members, that things are not as happy in some other councils as they are at South Hams. And I would like to congratulate the team on keeping our finances in such good order in such difficult times. Now, do I have any comments from the floor, please? I can't. Oh, hang on. Councillor Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Judy. Yeah, it's actually it's on Appendix A on the reserves,
Yes.
just because it's of particular interest to me at the moment. I'm interested in the Community Housing Fund, and it was really a question, but that was in the region of just shy of £2 million, and its opening budget. It's going to be down to 143,000 by the end of by the end of this financial year, and it was just really wondering where all that money's gone.
Well, Councillor Bastone, do you want to answer that one? Because you're on mute at the moment. Councillor Bastone,
we've obviously used it for projects that we've undertaken, and we've gone through this discussion, I think, through the last 2 executive meetings, but I'll let Mrs. Buckle firm up the details for you.
Before she does, I think I can say something on this one, Councillor Brazil. There is a considerable amount of money out on the 2, well, definitely on St Anne's Chapel that we're proposing to build out very shortly. And as soon as that's built out and the houses are either sold or rented, then that money will come back into the fund to be recycled, and that's how the fund keeps itself going. And that's why there are phases of building. That's why we have to take it in phases, because the money gets recycled. But I'll invite Mrs. Buckle in now.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, that's correct. So as part of the last report, which went to the executive and also went to council, there was a breakdown of where the Community Housing Fund has been spent scheme by scheme over the last 4 financial years. And there was a prediction of how much that money would be spent also in 2021. We can include that appendix again as part of the capital programme monitoring report, which will come to the executive in January, showing the latest position. As the leader has said, when those projects go live and the build starts on site, at that point we can capitalise those projects, and we can also capitalise the professional fees, the design fees, the technical fees, which have been spent up front from the Revenue Community Housing Fund. We can then capitalise that. So at that point, the Community Housing Fund will be replenished with the 250,000, for example, for the St Anne's Chapel scheme, because what happens then is those fees are financed through capital, through borrowing, and the revenue fund is replenished. So as the leader has said, that then gives a rolling fund for the Community Housing Fund. Thank you.
Councillor Brazil, does that, I think you've had this answer before, but does that satisfy you this time?
Well, yeah, sort of. You know, we're talking, I mean, you know, 250,000 from St Anne's Chapel. I'm not quite sure if that's the right figure or not, but whatever. I mean, so that brings it back up to what, in the region of 400,000. There's still another 1.5 million that seems to be a bit.
Well, Councillor Brazil, you've got
a
list of projects.
Yeah, no, exactly. We'll get a list, and I'll look forward to looking at that capital programme report in January. So yeah, I'll wait. Thank you.
If you look at previous reports, the figures won't be very different, because these aren't projects that move on very fast for the very reason that they have to be funded. So if you look at the funding that's gone out, you will count on most of those being capitalised back into the fund as soon as the build starts.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Do I have any more? Yeah. Do I have any more comments on the floor? Right, thank you. Well, I think in that case, we're ready to take the decision, members, on the recommendations as they stand at the top of the paper. Are you all in favour of those recommendations? Yes, thank you. Yes, Councillor Hopwood. Councillor Hawkins still hasn't got his camera on, but I'm living hope.
I've got it on my screen, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have.
Can't see me. I don't know why.
You've appeared.
Sorry.
No, you've appeared. Okay, right. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the draft revenue budget report, which I think I'm due to talk to you about. Right. Let's get these recommendations up so I can see them. Fine. Okay. Members, you have before you the draft revenue budget proposals for 2021-22. The report sets out that the predicted budget gap for 21-22 at the moment is £75,871. There is predicted to be a further budget gap of £413,624 in 22-23, with a cumulative aggregated budget gap of by 25-26 of 4.1 million if no action has been taken in each individual year to close the budget gap annually. Now, we have to show these figures, but every year Mrs. Buckle pulls the white rabbit out of the hat, and the budget gap disappears through one means or another. And so that scary budget gap of 4.1 million, I'm sure, is unlikely to occur, or at least not to that extent by any means. So thank you once again, Mrs. Buckle, for that. The government spending review announcement contained no real surprises for local government and largely confirmed the assumptions previously made within the medium-term financial strategy in October. We eagerly await the details of the draft local government finance settlement, which we're anticipating to be announced later today. And it will be good to see the details in this. In particular, we're hoping that it will clarify that the limit for council tax increases for a district council will be the higher of 1.99% or £5. The spending review only referred to a council tax limit of 2% for districts. The draft finance settlement should also give allocations of the amount of new homes bonus that we will receive in 21-22, even though, once again, this is the last year of new homes bonus and reforms will be implemented in 22-23. But once again, I think we'll see what happens next year. The pay award assumption has been reduced from 2% to 1% in the financial modelling. The government has implied that it expects local government to exercise restraint about pay, given the wider economic climate. A decision on the pay award is not within the council's control, and pay awards for local government are subject to national negotiation by employers and the unions. The spending review has confirmed that the business rates multiplier has been frozen for 21-22, so this has been reflected in the report, along with an estimate of the collection fund deficit of 29,000. The report also recommends that the council remains with the Devon business rates pool for 21-22. As soon as we have the announcement on the finance settlement, Mrs. Buckle will send out an email to all members on the key items announced. Any changes will be reflected within the next budget report to the joint scrutiny and DM meeting on the 14th of January. So once again, I'd like to thank Mrs. Buckle and all her team for putting this budget together in the very difficult financial circumstances and with the number of questions there are still outstanding, but you, other members of the council, will have first dibs at that when you get the joint report in January. Thank you. Are there any questions from members of the executive? Councillor Baldry, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just to really reinforce and follow with a question on what you said, that the it is our Employers Association who do the negotiation on pay. It is not the government that do that. And the question is just for you to confirm that even though the government are encouraging restraint, they actually have no control over what that negotiation does. And I think, and a comment just finally is, I think the 1% is probably a very reasonable figure to put in there rather than zero.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Baldry. Yes, in fact, the negotiations are done on our behalf by South West councils. They have staff that do that for all the South West councils. They negotiate with the unions, but the settlement is likely to be nationwide. Right. Do I have any further? Thank you for that question. Do I have any further questions from the executive? In which case, I'm happy to propose the. Do I have any questions from the floor? I can't see anybody. Oh, Councillor Abbott. Councillor Abbott's got a question.
Yes, thank you. The activities of South Hams CVS through COVID have been praised, despite us having a councillor acting in liaison for their activities, including their financial reporting. They got into trouble last year, and it was stated that they could have money for 1 year on the basis that they reported properly. Actually, your proposal for the coming year is zero. And my understanding of the conversation at the time was that if they got their act together, and they had not got their act together before, that this money could continue. But that's not the way it's looking at the moment. I wonder what you can say about the interaction of our own members with organisations to try to bring them along to meet the standards that we require. But I also wonder whether showing the good work that they've been doing this year, whether it would be worth supporting them in the future.
Councillor Abbott, I'm sure that Neil Hawke will be contacting them and asking them for an account of their outcome during the year, and that is a figure that is likely to change in the next round of the budget figures you'd see. But I guess that their outcomes have not yet been reported to us, and that's something we need to look into before the next version of the budget is produced. Is that all right for you now?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Right. Well, I'll propose the recommendations as they sit on the screen at the moment. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Right, we'll go into the debate. Members of the executive, do you want to make any comments on this budget paper? As I say, it is unfinished business at the moment because unfortunately we haven't got all the government figures in it. So it is a holding position, really. Members from the floor, does anybody want to make a comment on the budget figures as they stand? Right. Well, in that case, I'm going to take the vote on this. Members of the executive, are you happy to endorse these recommendations? Yeah. Do I have everybody on that? That's the hot word. Can't see you at the moment, but I'm assuming you're voting.
My hand up, and I have got my video on.
No, yes. Oh, you're coming up now. I think you need to speak to get yourself sort of on the screen. I don't know why you keep disappearing from me, but anyway. Right, thank you very much, members. And that, as far as I know, concludes the business for this morning. So thank you very much. We shall reassemble in 1 minute exactly, I think, for the COVID meeting. Or is it 12:30?
Thank you, Leader. It is 12:30, Leader. Thank you.
12:30, right. Well, we've got a quarter of an hour to regroup then, and I'll see you all at 12:30. And I think Councillor Rose chairing that session. Thank you.
Thank you.